ourselves, we can do a lot of things like, having these speaker series and also other speaker series that we keep doing. So it's a 1-year membership plan where we have 48 events, and these 48 events bring in a lot of scope for growing our businesses, learning a lot, meeting like-minded people, being with a supportive community that helps us through and through at every step. This series is sponsored by Power Up and is being conducted by KV Premraj. KV Premraj is an author and futurist speaker on leadership and management. He has spent 37 years 37 years in banking with experience in public and private sector. He was the CEO of BPO arm of a leading private sector bank. Premraj is the co-author of 3 books. All 3 books hit the #1 spot on Amazon best-selling list. Views expressed by Premraj have been published in Economic Times, Business Standard, Financial Express, Indian Express, Mumbai Mirror, and other periodicals. Premraj hails from Mumbai and resides with his wife, son, daughter-in-law, mother-in-law, and cat-in-law. Over to you, Premraj, and let's start with this exciting journey where I hear you talking with Mr. Anand Kane. Over to you.
Thank you, Jaya. Thanks for the kind introduction. We have on show today a multifaceted personality in Anand Kane. After completing his formal education in multiple locations, he settled down to a banking career. He's worked in a public sector bank, new generation private sector bank, and foreign banks in the Gulf and Africa. During his stint in Africa, he developed contacts with central banks to help assist economies of Libya, Ghana, Egypt, Nigeria, and South Africa. He successfully structured and implemented products on e-banking platforms across the oil and gas, telecom, and banking companies. He is a banking and IT consulting professional with 38 years of value addition with domain experience in banking and financial services. After managing global sales for technology development and management services for Oracle between 2012 and 15, he took up the entrepreneurial plunge. Anand has been a proficient sports person, indulging in a variety of individual and team sports. For the last 6 years, he has been hooked on to amateur running and social service, about which we will discover in a short while. Anand, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Premraj. Thank you so much. That was very kind of you to give such a beautiful introduction.
Nice having you on the show.
Thank you once again.
If we have to say a 1-paragraph statement which can encapsulate Anand Kane and his lifetime, what would that be?
Well, straight-jacketed, non-conflicting, multitasker, balanced, fair, and focused in whatever I do. If it were even washing my own car or my friend's car, just doesn't make a difference. Punchline for me in life is dare to be different. I'm a natural. That's it.
That's a good one. When I contacted you for this program, for the creatives, we needed a title after your name. You opted for the accidental banker tag. Curious to know why.
Well, yes, it did happen that way. You mentioned about the sports, and I was hooked onto it. Coming from a KVS background, which is Kendriya Vidyalaya, it's more like a military school. So the love for sports along with academics is always a balance to make. And it was the sports which naturally got me hooked onto. Even in school days and then later on into college, it used to be morning, evening practices and multiple sports, because maybe I was not a master at anything, but I sure was a jack at all. So maybe 6 to 7 hours a day with the college and with we didn't have any classes then because we kind of managed it on our own. But everything was going fine. And I finished my second year exams, and somewhere around the same time, I got opportunity to work with a nationalized bank. This was an opportunity which came under the sports quota. So something which I possibly was not very keen on, I was not sure, but I did take that. The accidental banker tag happened because 6 months down the line, while I was doing my banking, and my objective was to be playing for the organization and also working, and not the other way around. But a motorbike accident changed the entire tide in my life. And here I stood, not knowing if I was going to have my right leg later on, or I was even going to walk on it, or I didn't even know if I would have maybe a leg and a half. And what then the doctor told me is that if you can have those two legs and you can walk on them properly, you should find yourself lucky. That changed everything for me. It was overnight. And then what else? That is how this accidental banker was born, because then the focus went into banking.
Nice story, but it's a happy coincidence. Uh, a year ago, when I started out on the public stage, when introducing about my past, I used to mention I was an accidental banker, the very same term that you have used now.
Really speaking, I
Yeah.
didn't know that, Prem. That's nice to hear. Maybe some other day we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Anand, your voice is a bit low, huh?
Oh, I'm sorry. Probably the Bluetooth. Is it better now? Probably trying to
Yeah,
get better.
it's a bit better now.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah. There's a bit about the present venture that you have, its impact on employment opportunities and other stuff that has opened for people.
It was a tough ask, honestly, to throw away something in an MNC and get into becoming an entrepreneur. A bit of it was something which I wanted to do. And again, situations also forced me to take the plunge slightly earlier. But absolutely no grudges about that. After kind of putting about 33 years into various banking and IT jobs, it was worthwhile. So I took stake into a company by the name of Trust Systems and Software. This was an old company, about 14 years before I took stock in. And they were into core banking systems as their main products, among many others. And I became one of the four partners after that. And the journey has been quite interesting, lot to learn. It was an elephant which we wanted to turn around, and to first even get it up was a bit of a challenge, because when we come from a background which is entirely different and into a business like background, more so an entrepreneurial background, yes, there are challenges, but then those were the learnings, and that's something which I always have loved to. So over these 3 4 and now the 6th year that I'm getting into, we have done a bit there. We have had a core banking product which, as a tier 2 company, can really compete, even if I'm boasting it so myself. And why I say this is because I worked with a tier 1 company, which was before I moved into this business and into a core banking product. So we are there today, and I'm happy that we can. But we've continued to be in the MSME space as of now, because certain benefits that you get. We've also been a bit lucky that the scope of MSMEs has just been changed currently during COVID times, which could also maybe help us. But irrespective, the work that we are doing doesn't change. We are trying to make it as a supreme product which is bundling everything. You don't expect a customer, as in a bank or any banking or financial institution, to go out and probably buy any third party systems to start their organization, be it a microfinance company, be it a bank, a cooperative bank, a district cooperative bank. And why I take these two names are because in India we play largely in these two markets, because the other markets have been captured by tier 1 companies. So we play a lot in the cooperative banking space, in the credit cooperative societies, and the microfinance space, and which is a large space today. I mean, you have more than 10,000 cooperative banks, and probably the number is much more than what I'm saying, because some just have been there and running, and then the government has had their challenges with these banks. So, but it's a large space, uh, deep and different pocket sizes. But what we did after that is we also became one of the GSPs. Just to give an idea, when GST came in, that was 3 years back, there were 34 companies impaneled by the government of India, which is GSTIN, which is the body which was doing this. And we were privileged to be among the first 34. There was only another product company like us, which was TCS, no, which is absolutely two different levels at which both operate. But because we were a product company, we were considered there and given a license. And happy to see what we have done over the last 3 years. We are working with a good number of PSUs and cooperative banks, giving them end-to-end GST compliance softwares which ride onto their core banking systems. What I'm looking to as we go and as we grow is these centers where we started a second company a year back, wherein we wanted to do services, which is where we are trying to get in opportunities for youngsters. What has happened well for us during these times is to probably put in a model which otherwise could have been challenging, but got forced now because of the times that they are. So my services people, and more so from a customer side, because the customer was always very, very skeptical about having these services being offered near shore or offshore. And what we have been able to do now is these times were forced times. So customers had to take it or leave it. Leave they didn't want to, so take they did. And what made us do that is to build a model where I have staff sitting across around Mumbai, which is a vertically split city, and I can't get them here. I have people in Pune, I have people in Nagpur, or wherever they are. Today I have a guy sitting in UP because he had to go home, and he's still doing the same service that we were. So that has helped us. And to end it up there on this question, looking to have something of a legacy to leave, because there is so much and more of an opportunity. It's as much as you can grab and the time that you have with you, which can make it happen.
It's really commendable. You can really make an elephant dance.
I don't know about that, but I'm trying to get it out for now.
And what about the employment opportunities that you have opened up for people? Employee engagement, anything on those lines, please? Because I remember, a couple of people from ADFC are looking for an opening. You accommodated them, and when I was speaking to them, they seem to be pretty happy with the way they are functioning.
Yes, Prem. What happened well for us was that the skill sets that you want to get them into services and get them not doing mundane jobs, or get them to do those mundane jobs also with some variety, is what I've always believed in. So I wouldn't put somebody into a particular job and let him to kind of rot there, because what is important is to keep on looking at these people, overseeing him. I don't believe in micromanagement, but overseeing them to see what is their better skill. So if I were to maybe look at a couple of them, which I would have taken, and they were doing just data entry jobs in their previous jobs. And today, we've given them time to do some self-learning. We have helped them with doing that. And today they can match a few of our techno-functional guys and do support at institutions. Now, where would I get that sort of person? That person is happy for the skills that we have helped them grow. The customer is happy. I am happy because probably I'm having a skill which I have honed, and the cost to output is a great ratio that I have.
That's nice. You've achieved a lot in life. Is there anything else you always wanted to do or wanted to be?
The word achievement for me is a double-edged sword. Like I look at and say that many have perished chasing it. What has helped me when I look at myself is the flexibility to maybe adapt to situations without compromising my values, and find maybe the learnings, maybe failures also, and make them humorous. There was a time where I was in a bank, and most of us bankers used to have to do a CIIB, right, as an exam.
Right.
And we used to have it in two parts. I believe it's now called JIIB. And in part one, we had this subject called rural economics, and they once gave me 8.5 marks out of 100 in that, and I don't know how much I laughed. And then I once approached the institute and said, maybe you lost my main supplement and only the supplement was left over, probably that is where you scored. So I mean, all these failures have helped us learn more. And achievement, as I say, puts a gun onto your head. So I try to take it a little bit humbly. But coming to what you said, that what I would have had to, I talked to about which school I was at, and being in that school, it was a military school. Much before that, also while I was in Pune, it was a military type of school. So I have always had an inclination towards armed forces. Uh, Sadly, and where I couldn't do any much to correct, being a late child, I couldn't get to be there because there was a lot of, on the home front, it was just impossible to convince them. So yes, I would have loved to be in the armed forces.
Armed forces, right. You have been a daredevil, always flirting with danger. What is your definition of fear? Can you share stories where you stared at death?
Fear, I'm still trying to find what is fear. No luck so far. But yes, the fear, or should I say thought of losing someone dear, can create cold feet. And I've had that happening too often, too early in my life. Like I said, that I was a late child. So I was not so fortunate as many are to have my father was also a guide for me. He was a banker himself of repute, and was an absolute example to lead with. And what I only could take from him were the values and virtues. But like I said, these losses do hate, but fear is something which I guess this again had to do with something. When you talk about story, I can vividly remember this was the school in Pune where I used to study, a school called Maharashtra Mandal. It's an absolute military type of a school. They used to teach us shooting and everything. And I joined swimming at the age of 6. I don't know how many of you here know that school, but old school on Tilak Road. Later on, they moved to another part of town. But when I was studying, it was on Tilak Road, and there's a dingy little swimming pool there. The way they taught swimming was very different from what they would teach today. Today's parents will probably never put their kids there. Mine didn't mind. So I was there at the age of 6, and they used to use those postman oil dabbas with a sutadi on back, and they used to tie us there. And they used to tell us to just paddle in the water for 3-4 days. They used to not fuss about you. So they used to just leave you on your own around the edge of the swimming pool. And the coaches used to be observing each and every kid on the side. They didn't mess up with you for 6-7 days. Most of the kids were just happy playing around and not even get into the water or touch the water. Some of the adventurous ones at least got inside, realized that they wouldn't drown because of the dabba, and stayed there. On the 11th or 12th day, or even before that, the coaches on the 7th day didn't wait for all this jing bang to continue. So on the 6th or 7th day, they picked everybody like a gunny sack and dropped him in the water, him or her, whoever was there. But that water was not so very deep. So, and after that, the only thing that they said is, we want you to survive. So we'll teach you what was the easiest of the strokes, which was dog pedal, which even a pet can learn, or a pet learns from their mother's stomach. They don't need to be taught. But we did that. Come day 14, they invited our parents, and we didn't know what it was for. There was a huge well alongside the swimming pool, a good 50 feet circumference, a beautifully maintained well. Lovely stairs leading down there, and they lined us up there towards the well. We didn't know what we were supposed to do. But yes, whoever was second knew that what the first guy was doing. So he was obviously not liking what was happening. And the parents were called one by one and made to stand around the side of the well. This was about 15, a batch of 15 or 20. And the depth would have been about maybe 20 to 30 feet. Now, a 6-year-old child, 30 feet. Half of the guys were peeing on the side. Even if I'm saying this on the show, I felt like I didn't, I'm quite sure. But they just made you jump there after telling that your coaches are standing there below. I do believe that that was the day. And since then, I don't think there was anything like fear into me. I did that jump, and then every day when I used to come for training, I used to do that jump again and again. There used to be no diving, nothing fancy about it. It used to just make you jump there. And in the next 10 days, because the training used to be about 3 weeks, that's it. They said, you no dog pedal, you won't drown, period. We want you to learn how to survive. I think that took away the fear, which probably I thought if I had, but that's been my experience. And there would have been many when we would have brushed with death. But I guess this was one of the reasons where I probably came over it. And I still remember that very, very vividly.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing this with us. Which is the animal you like the most and why?
Well, I'm an animal lover, so irrespective of whatever, anything on four legs, I love. But yes, a dog, and I have one, and I'm sorry if you may hear him bark while we're talking, because he likes to play and he must be playing in the other room with my wife. But a dog, and I've been lucky and privileged and had the good fortune to have two of them over my lifespan so far. And one at the right time when you start growing as a child. And my dad was kind enough to get me one, and we lived with him, and he lived with us for about 12 years. So, and being a sole child, this sort of company was just unparalleled. It was fantastic. And as now my kid grew, the same thing happened, and I couldn't deny her that luxury. So we have another one now. The good
Okay,
part about is that my kid got married and went, and I'm happily having the fun and the time to spend with him.
that's a nice one. Uh, for the last 6 years, you have been an avid runner, running marathons and ultra marathons. Can you tell us how you prepare for these runs in terms of diet, sleep, and hydration?
It's how you look at it. Sometimes people get too overwhelmed, if I were to use that word, when they're doing such things. But let's remember that we are what we are. And I have always believed, I started saying that I'm a natural. And even now I am that way, even if I'm into running. I guess being and played sports before has helped. But yes, I also took with me, those challenges of having injuries with a kind of a weaker leg because of my broken leg then. And yes, it was challenging. I had a lot of resistance and still have from my family. But I believe that being natural helps from a preparation perspective. And like all the gurus talk about, I think I still go the same way, that the importance of sleep, that's quite paramount. We have seen or heard many not so good things when people kind of do not make sleep as a good habit for themselves. Because in the professional work life that you run around, these days you see people kind of overdoing things. When it comes to hydration, yes, water, if I look at myself, I was a poor water drinker earlier. And as I moved into running, I slowly made a habit of drinking. I Now luckily we have a lot of apps on the phone to remind you. But even while the apps were not there, and in office, I used to have told my pantry boy or whoever was there serving me that every 1 hour I want you to get me a glass of water, keep it in front of me, and don't move from there till I finish those 300 ml of water. So that is the way I initially developed that, because on my own, if I had 4 bottles left with me, I would tend not to, because you would get into some call or some work and you would miss it out. That helped me. So the hydration bit helped, because water really helps. That's the purest form of whatever you get, irrespective of what quality you get. But water is still the same. And the more you get it plain without mixing up any of those, what do you call, the enerzols or the electrols of the world, you can still manage it. What is more important from where I see is when it comes to around the event day, though we don't fuss, but at least we try to be a bit decent on what we are eating. When I say decent, is maybe try and avoid a bit of the oily stuff, because that doesn't go well. If I'm running a 12-hour ultra, which is say from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m., it would take a lot from my body. But it is also important that the morning stuff which I do, which is as good as saying that if I don't have my share of my potty in the morning, I'm not going to be a comfortable runner. So I
True.
take to it that whatever I eat is light in the night, and I'm comfortable when I get off, because we all know, howsoever what we say, that if you had a very decent and a clear stomach, even your mind starts getting clearer, because this is all running is all there in the mind, and it all starts from the stomach and gets there to the head if you don't get it right.
Hmm.
So I generally try to do that. On the diet, we usually try, depending upon what we are running, and if we know the sort of terrain that we are running, because sometimes there are hills, sometimes it is sand, sometimes there's a mixture of how would you say, forest trail runs that we have. So according to that, we kind of, when we change the attire also that we need to, we also kind to have be the, the sort of diet where we have a mix of carbs or something. But trust me, around the year a lot of marketing happens around this and people do businesses. But if I talk to somebody, because after being for a while, you have somebody saying aap kya karte ho, and I say aap jo karte the wahi karo. You don't really need to do something so great about it.
Yeah, thanks for those practical tips. There are some want to be runners in this on this call. These tips will be helpful for them. Apart from running, you are also into a lot of social service. Tell us a bit about that.
I always believed about that the joy of giving probably is unparalleled, and that doesn't mean that the depth of the pocket defines the joy of giving. Appropriately helping someone somewhere is what I believe in, rather than getting into some very large NGOs or stuff like that. Uh, a friend of mine who's a trustee with one of the Aadhar homes, as it is called, a place very close by from here, which is in Badlapur, and they have another branch in Nashik. They take care of about 300 to 350 mentally challenged, I would say, kids, because it's from 18 onwards that they admit inside. And one has to be there to see how tough it is to handle them. It is a fully grown, mentally challenged adult with an IQ level below your base level. And this is a team of over 100, people who take care of all these adults morning to night and through the night, day in, day out, month on month, year on year, till that person ceases to live. Now, when you go there, you are touched by the way they do things. And I've been associated with them for a while now. Uh, at the Standard Chartered Marathon last year, and since 2 years, I've got them attached there as an NGO. So what helps is, they get into the celebrity run stuff. They have the kids coming from Badlapur and they have a ball of a time enjoying there. But what it helps them, because this is not a government funded organization, so it is on a parent child relationship where the parent sponsors the child. But as we know, parents age and they are not in that position to support the child after a while because costs keep going up. So that makes it difficult for doing it over a prolonged period. And that is where those charities come in very, very handy and useful. So that is one of the organizations I help. And among many others, we even talk of something that is very close to my heart, which we are doing on the 15th of August. Now, this is where we have actually, on a yearly basis, we have the Mumbai Ultra, which is a 12-hour run. This year, as those who are in that space might be aware, that there are no ultras, no races happening thanks to COVID. So I came up with an idea and suggested that why don't we do something on that day, which could also assist the society. So what we're doing is, instead of running the ultra for 12 hours, we have kept a blood donation camp which is run for 12 hours. So the blood donation camp will run from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And the ultra was anyway associated with Tata Memorial Hospital even earlier, because in the last 3-4 years, when we have done the Tata Memorial Hospital Ultra, we have seen that
The video, the video has gone on hold. Are you able to hear me at least?
I can hear you.
Okay, I think his video has got stuck because of some network issue. So let's just wait till he comes back. Okay, yeah, I think it got logged out because there was a network issue there, and he shall reconnect soon. Meanwhile, if those who were hearing, if you might have any questions, we can have them ready so that, once Premraj has already asked all the questions that we had thought about, you could shoot yours. What do you think about that?
You could even write those in the chat.
Yeah, if it's on the chat, I will be receiving it. I'm getting all private messages. I'm looking at, taking care of the settings, but I haven't been able to. So you can put it on chats. I will read it out, or else you can unmute and let us know. That's also fine. Sorry, is somebody saying something? Okay, he's back. He's back. Hi, Anand.
Hi, so sorry. Technology is Murphy's law.
No problem. Okay.
We
But
lost you at the
what?
blood donation. When you were talking about the blood donation.
But your voice is much clearer now, huh?
I don't know about that, but I'm happy if it is. So,
It is.
so I hope I'm audible. But,
Yes, yes, very much.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll probably sue MTNL for it. I can't do anything. So, sorry, we're talking about the blood donation camp. And somewhere we kind of, we're always with Tata Memorial there for the run. So we reached out to Tata Memorial and checked with them, and they gleefully jumped because what I heard from one of the doctors there was that last 35 years in what I have been associated with Tata Memorial, there has never been a day in my life where I've seen deaths happening because there has been no blood to operate people. And there are kids. This comes from the pediatric ward. So they said that this never happened before. And today we are seeing kids die because we can't operate them. And that is because we don't have blood. So we said, why don't we connect? And that is how we connected. I'm happy to say that we are going full blazing, doing registrations. We have targeted to get about 500 donors at least in these difficult times. And we're trying to get this to the running community because the running community is where we connect with the ultra. The donations do not stop just with the running community. Anybody and everybody is welcome to join in and donate. And the word is getting spread everywhere. We have even reached out to the additional secretary and requested that people in and around Mumbai be permitted to use public transport on that day so that they can make it to the camp, because not everybody can afford to come by a car or take a cab, say from Panvel or Virar. So trains are plying, and that's what we are looking to achieve. So wish me luck, and we hope that we can do something for the society.
Yes, we really wish you luck. You are doing a commendable work. You spoke about the Badlapur home, which I visited once, and they are doing a remarkable work in looking after those kids, those 150 people that you talked about. Absolutely. And this blood donation drive, there are a lot of people, Mumbaikars, on this show. They will help spread the message. I've already spread the message in my community, and we are sure you will reach your target of 500.
That's wonderful. In fact, I should mention, Prem, that I know you're a Rotarian, and we have good support from the Rotary Club of Shivaji Park, who actually wanted to also come in as associates to doing this. And yes, a lot is happening. The numbers are coming in. Well, we just hit about 100 yesterday, but I'm sure like the runners do, they pick up pace only when the race gets hotter and later.
Right. With 10 more days to do, I'm sure you'll reach the 500 plus mark.
Fingers crossed. Amen.
Yeah. If you had to pick 3 traits for being a successful leader, what would they be and why?
the management books will talk of many of them, starting from loyalty and honesty and integrity and God knows accountability. But I would much go from experiences of what I have been through over these years. I've been blessed to have some very good mentors, and one of them, which I always will talk about, even before now, and I've always, and just today he had a heir to his empire being announced, and that is our good old boss, Mr. Aditya Puri. And he used to say this, that, and which is one of the traits, saying decision making. He says, I want you as managers to take decisions. Take 10. Maybe you'll screw up on 8 to start with. But as long as you know that you have to improve upon it, there will be a day when you will screw up 2 out of 10 and you'll get 8 right. And that's exactly why I have you as managers. So I put that decision making ability, or I would say the gut or the capability or whatever, as one of the traits to go with. The other one is delegation, if I would think of, and even empowerment, because we have seldom seen what happens when you do not do that. It gets to micromanagement after that. But if you are delegating and you are empowering, what it does is it instills a lot of confidence in the ranks. Yes, sure, you have to have the right choice of people when you're delegating to them. Otherwise, it can still be a disaster. But delegation surely is one. And among others, yes, confidence surely, because people ape leaders. So if you don't have the confidence, I shouldn't use the word saying you should be confident even if you're lying. But I guess as a marketing man, you need to do that once in a while. So be it, as long as the interest of the business is suited and you're not doing something wrong for the society. But I would still put 2 of mine, which are the most important ones, which I feel, this is personal, absolutely. I don't know if it's written in any management book, but I would think a good listener and someone who respects time. These are 2 values which I got from my father. And I think these are great virtues for a leader to take.
Great. You spoke about decision making, confidence, delegation, being a great listener, and someone who is punctual and a good time manager. Great traits to have in a leader. Thank you for sharing this, Anand. What comes first for you on the personal level and on a professional level?
This is a tough one, Prem. I would say both. Now, that doesn't answer what you said. But, I always feel, and maybe I'm a bit blessed like many others would have been, you need to have 2 separate compartments to process each. Focus and prioritization can, where you queue up both and, you're there. So you need to do a common queue there where you have your personal as well as professional stuff aligned, and then you prioritize as you need to get forward. The other part is never carry your work baggage mentally home, and ditto for your personal baggage to work. Now, the dilemma is during these current times of work from home, right? So, what I've said may not hold good there, but that's how I look at it.
Yeah, there has to be a judicious mix. I agree with you. Now, what do you hope to accomplish within the next 3 years? You've already accomplished a lot. What are your plans for the next 3 years?
Well, if I continue to live for the next 3 years, what I might accomplish very seriously and without much effort is senior citizenship.
Okay.
But jokes apart, I always think that setting such targets can get a bit hazardous, both personally and professionally. I have seen life in my own family from all sides, and it's difficult. We need to be very dynamic and be adjustable and flexible to change what you're focusing on. Typically it's like a footballer, as I put in. You don't know who's going to attack you from where. And so you have to make your move depending on that. So I guess I link that as a sportsman when it comes to, but when I talk of a few things that can change, there's there's something just recently which happened with a very close runner friend of mine. He used to train with me for the last 5-6 years. Maybe he started a couple of years before me. A very humble guy, coming from a Kachi family. Yes, it was a passion for both of us when it got to running. His passion turned into obsession. And I don't know whether it was the obsession which made it happen, but yes, 4 days back, just we didn't have him. He didn't wake up in the morning. So we had a major cardiac arrest. And we used to chat a lot. We used to run together. So many things used to happen. I used to check with him on his targets. And something like you asked, where are you getting to in the next 3 years? A well-to-do man from a family. His daughter just became a doctor just 15, 20 days back. And this man had got obsessed. Everybody needs to know where you are. A Maruti 800 really can't always compete with a limousine.
True.
And I don't say he was a Maruti 800, but he sure wasn't a limousine. And while he had the time to do so many things, he kind of burnt himself out. And today he's not there. So his 2 to 3 year target stuff always gets to be a bit difficult. But on a serious note, I want to contribute in whatever, wherever it is to be, and being a catalyst in bringing positive change, irrespective of which area. If I can do that, I sleep so very well.
Thanks, Anand. We have been speaking for the last 40 odd minutes. Do you mind taking some questions from the audience?
Absolutely not.
Jaya?
Yes. It was so good to hear you, Anandji, and especially the traits which you described about leaders. I am with you on that. Decision making and being on time are non-negotiable, I think, for a leader. I was also in the middle of writing my second book, which is called On Time is Late. I feel that being on time is equal to late. We must actually be before time wherever it is that we want to reach. So we respect our time and others' time. So I'm very glad you brought that up and I loved it. So thank you for that.
That's the way I've been living my life. So it just comes naturally.
Wow. So we have a lot of comments also coming in for you. Best wishes, Anandji. Keep on inspiring. God bless you. And a lot of wishes coming in for you. But we do have a question from Ritu. She says, what is about the armed forces that is so fascinated you? It is good to see that despite so successful in your current field, you still think about being associated with the armed forces. Having said that, I would like to say that the loss is that of the armed forces. But her question is that what is it that fascinated you for armed forces?
Thanks for the question. It's a nice one. It touches your emotional chord. And it has always, I guess, how do I answer this? I mean, if you've been into school and your peer group is wanting to get into a particular stream for studying, you tend to also, I would again use the same word of keeping them or wanting to be with them. There might be something for company. I mean, we were like that. And today's kids are much, much more focused. They start deciding at the age of, at 7, class 10, 7 or 8 of what they want to do. And more often than not, they do it. But during our time, it was that way. And having studied in a military school for more of my years, it was very easy for me to connect with all the kids coming from a military background. And I used to go along with them to military canteens, go on playing, learned horse riding, learned shooting. I mean, I've been blessed to do all these things at a very young age. And today's kids, they don't even get a ground to play, at least in places like Mumbai. So thankfully, I was in multiple places, and that helped me to do that, because Kendriya Vidyalaya used to have huge complexes and all these facilities were there. So naturally, you see, and then there is that, you are made in some way. And I think I talked about the fear part. So if you think that you are fearless, what better than the army to be in and serve for your country?
Very true. That is so true. But very few people might be thinking like that. It really needs to be somebody who's very courageous and fearless to be saying that. So thank you for that. It's great to hear you saying that. We have
talk about that. Sorry if I were to just add to it. We see countries wherein we find mandatory military training. Even Singapore, countries so close by, have it. I know countries in Africa have it. So what happens there is it instills a bit of a sort of discipline which is much different to a civilian. Yes, it takes you to the rigors of physical training, but it also does you a lot of mental training along with that. And today, I guess that balance is missing when we look at the society. You look at these youngsters today, and half of them are listless. I'm sure if you would have put them for some sort of trainings like this, life would have been on a different, no, a different track for them. At least there would have been some disciplines which they would have got to. Today, look at normal civic sense, which in India we miss out. And I don't think much has happened there, and we can only be optimistic that over the few years something will happen. But military training and making it mandatory really can help.
True, very true.
Very true. Actually, I think discipline is one thing, that if we imbibe it into our character, it completely changes destinies. So maybe today's children, if they are, given this kind of training or something like that, it's really going to help them build that kind of character, which, does a lot of benefit.
Absolutely.
Anand, can I ask question, Prem?
Yeah, Suresh, go ahead.
Yes, please.
Yeah. The simple question which comes to my mind because of e-learning, whatever is going on right now. Anand, what is your take on that? It's a different question from your what you have mentioned, because I know that we talk in terms of communication, etc. Listening is important. Talking is only 7-10%, whatever we talk in terms of technicalities. But today, e-learning, children are glued to computers or maybe laptops or mobiles.
Right.
What is your take on that? In the sense that, what do you think where we are going from here?
Everything that you do creates an opportunity for somebody or the other. And all the opticians across the country are so happy that e-learning is happening. I have an optician friend of mine. He doesn't know where to look at. Me and him walk our dogs together in the evening sometimes, because now we have nothing better than being dog walkers for a while. And he has half of his clients meeting him on the road saying, "Mera chashma ban gaya hai nahi." So when he was jokingly saying, "Abhi Fire Garden pe ek lari laga deta hu mera," because that's what is exactly happening. Because kids are glued on to, earlier they were just maybe on TV or on their PlayStations, and now their learning is happening there. So you are pushing them on to just watch the screen for God knows how many hours in the day. And while you don't have a choice, but it's the same way that the work from home balance and imbalance is happening, for which we have created poor cultures and I blame that to us as Indians. It's the same way. Talk to anybody who's working from home today, and he or she is grossly pissed off the way, because we don't respect anybody's time. The same way is happening with e-learning. As it is, the kids were under a lot of pressure, and now you make them do this. Not to talk about all the gadgets or the equipment that some who cannot afford have to buy. And then, there are so many things. Just like my network went down, you think about somebody who can't have an optional way of looking at and connecting immediately. What does he do? So there are so many challenges, but yes, I'm sure some things will come up. Some corporate will encash on it and try giving you some cheaper bandwidth and line, but it's opportunity for some. But I'm not so sure it's so great when it comes to the number of hours that kids are going to be putting.
Yeah, thanks.
So, e-learning, sir, if I may just add that, both my children are now at home and they are doing this e-learning. So my son is in college. Only one thing is good, that I'm not waiting for them to come home. They are here right at home. So they don't have this party and today yahan and wahan. So at least that thing has changed, and we know that they are right here and we know what they are doing. But like you rightly said, the opticians are going to benefit a lot. But because of that, now we've started doing the eye exercises. I sit down and I tell them, please, Baba, do some eye exercises. We are completely glued on, including me. All of us in the house are, with our laptops and mobiles, because our work is on laptop, the school is on a gadget, and everything is on a gadget. So some good things, some bad things, but that is how it is. So let's sail through this. So thank you for that question.
About Jaya, maybe I would add this, that when you talk of only the eyes, I can also share this because I'm also going through it, and I'm sure you do. That there have been many who have been complaining of stuff like back aches. because
Yeah.
when you are going to be at home, naturally
Very,
your
very
posture is
important.
not going to be the
Yes,
same what
I
was
agree.
before. So
Yes.
there are exercises for the back also that you need to start doing yourself, because eyes is just one part, but tomorrow it's going to be a challenge for you to walk as well.
Very true. Very true. You're
Very
so
true.
right. I think a little half an hour of exercise is compulsory. It should be compulsory for all of us sitting here.
I I just want to add, Anand, one more thing, one more point on this is that I think it is leading us, all of us, to something called as a social isolation, which is a very, very big problem in the sense that we are all doing this, work from home or work from anywhere, and kids are also glued to all that. There is no joke, but in one house there are husband, wife sitting in separate rooms, child is sitting in separate. But this is ultimately leading to a social isolation. That's what my opinion is.
Yeah, it does. You're right. In many ways, yes, because everybody is glued on to their job. You're there, everybody's on calls. If you're working at two different organizations, you tend to do that. And while you're physically there, but you're still physically not there for the children at times because they're also on their own doing something else.
Yeah, any more questions?
It's making us independent. So we have a comment here. This
Read out
topic
all the comments, please.
This topic was so interesting. I think we could go on another half an hour talking about how we do things from home and how much we value. Actually, honestly, I'm dying to meet people in a, I wish this was done personally and we could meet each other. I'm really waiting for that time when we'll have an offline meeting now. So yeah, I'll move further to the next comment. Bhavna says, thank you for sharing, Anandji. Very inspiring. Premraj did a great show. Congratulations to you both, Jaya and Premraj, for one more very interesting episode in your series of Power Up. Very true, Anandji. We should have Singapore model mandatory 3-year in armed forces. I think that's a brilliant thing. But in our own way, maybe if we could do some little things at home to create that discipline or, things like that. So we don't have any other questions on the chat. But we would be very happy if somebody would want to unmute and ask. We are running out of time. So if we can have a quick question, or else we can then keep talking about discipline.
You're already coming to the end of the time too. It's,
Yeah, I know.
If you don't have any questions, then we might as well wind up.
Sure.
Anand, thank you very much.
Pleasure's been mine, Prem. Thanks for inviting me to the show. And I hope anything and everything that we talk is some learning. I learned a few things. Yeah. I hope that I could be of help to somebody.
Yeah. You are the embodiment of courage and a can-do attitude. Those of us who have been privileged to be in your proximity has cherished your company. You are doing yeoman service to humanity, making a difference to so many lives. Continue with your crusade. We wish you good health, wealth, and satisfaction of a job done well. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Prem.
That was really kind of you.
Anand. Thank you, Anand.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks all for being on this.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Thank you, Premraj, for inviting such brilliant speakers. Thank you, Anandji. It was amazing listening to you and your thoughts about discipline. Leadership has really, actually it has created some kind of significance for all of us who already knew this is there, and now more people talking about the same thing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, and we look forward to meeting you very soon once again. Thank you each one of you for joining in. These evenings are more interesting.
If I may,
please.
I did notice while you're talking, one of my mentors is on the show, and I would love if he would say he's been a direct mentor to me.
Wow,
and
so
I
sweet.
don't think he's in Mumbai, but he had told me that he will join. Mr. Ram Subramani, I do see that you're there somewhere and you've muted yourself.
Yeah, he's here.
Yeah,
I was trying to speak. Hello?
Hello, yes sir.
Hello, can I speak?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. Anand, I enjoyed listening to you. Hello?
Yes, Ram, I'm
we
listening.
can hear you.
Actually, we used to call him a cop, when we were all working together. When he talked about army, I am reminded. We used to call him a policeman. Anand, one thing we didn't touch upon today is about your singing. how this music helps you, tide over, stressful moment. Can you say something about it, Anand?
That is a driver-cleaner relationship, Ram, that I say. I have a driver in my house and I am the cleaner. So my driver inspires me. And during this lockdown, she's got me from, let me say, from bathroom to bedroom. That's what I've done. From probably being not so unbearable, I probably have become a bit bearable.
Thanks.
Ram, it was nice to see you. I know you're in a poor.
I was there all the time. I wanted you to tell something, the thinking part. Songs. How did it help you?
I got you, Ram.
Anand is a good singer, actually.
We want to hear one song. Sorry, now we are not listening to anything else. We want to hear a song.
No, maybe a song will be a bit too much, but I'll probably just maybe hum a tune or something, which I think which is quite true, not just to the time but to the people also. I'm a big Kishore Kumar fan, like many of us would be around here, and this is one of his songs. So pardon my voice in whichever way it is. I had a hard day today, talking a lot also earlier during my day with some meetings, but let me try to that. कुछ तो लोग कहेंगे लोगों का काम है छोड़ो बेकार की बातों में बीत न जाए ना कुछ तो लोग कहेंगे. Thank you.
Wow, that was so amazing. Superb. That's what I'm saying. I'm missing the offline meetings so much. I can't tell you. But anyways, this is also a good way of interacting and meeting new people like that.
Yes,
Thank you so much. You made our day, our evening so special with that beautiful song, that melody. And thank you everybody for joining in. Thank you, Ram sir, for telling us what actually was hidden for so long. We got to hear a song from him. So thank you so much for that. Thank you each one of you for joining in. And thank you, Anand, once again. And we will hopefully meet soon and have many more such events with you. Thank you, Prem Raj.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Have a great evening all.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.